language arts at Colorado Academy in Denver. I also am English department chair, and for the last 5 to 10 years I've been doing a lot of traveling, not just in the Middle East but in Southeast Asia and some other places. I became interested in the Middle East just because I became interested in the Middle East, and about 5 years ago, I was looking for a Middle Eastern program, and I went to Hebrew University in Israel to take a summer course at Rothberg College on the Middle East. And the only reason why I chose Israel is because I was looking for an inexpensive program. I wanted to go to Turkey. The program was canceled. Found out about Rothberg College and went there, and then traveled a lot in the occupied territories that summer. So because of that fascination, when I found out about this Fulbright, it's called a Distinguished Award in Teaching, I decided, Israel was one of the 7 countries, so I decided to apply for Israel. It's a brand new program. It's only been going for 3 years. And what you do is you go on your own. It's independent. You were supposed to be under the aegis of a university in the country, and mine was Hebrew University. I had a mentor and a teacher at Hebrew University that I'd taken a course with in the past. I took a course on the Arab-Israeli conflict last spring. I also was supposed to go into classes and observe and teach. And I had decided that, and the main part was called an action research project. So I decided I was going to use Palestinian and Israeli artists, and art organizations to teach identity in both Palestine and Israel. And that this would not be a project that was about coexistence or about bringing people together or even seeing commonalities, parallels. That did happen, but and that I would just do them separately and try to get as many different kinds of people as I could. So I went there having researched a little bit. I had 4 months, no support from any, the Fulbright Israel did not pay much attention to what I was doing because they have their Fulbright Scholar program, and then they have this new program that I was on, and they didn't really know what to do with the 2 teachers who were there. The other teacher was doing something on religion in schools in Palestine and Israel. So it was completely independent, whatever I did. And I went over there with the intention of being in both Israel and Palestine. And actually, when I met the Israeli Fulbright people, having been there for 4 weeks, and sat down with them, and they said, "What have you been up to?" And the most recent week I had been to the Freedom Theater in Jenin. They were a little horrified, or a little more than horrified, and they said, "You're a woman traveling alone. We don't want you in the West Bank." And I said, "The State Department says it's okay. Fulbright says it's okay. I'll do whatever you want to recheck with them, but this is part of my project." And they didn't follow up with me after that once more in the next 3 months, so I was pretty much free to do what I wanted to. I was living in Abu Tur, which is above the old city in Jerusalem, and it is a mixed Jewish and Arab neighborhood. I was on the Jewish side of that neighborhood. The Arab side is in the front, Jewish side's in the back, and that was my base. The way I got my contacts with the West Bank was I went on something called Abraham's Path. You might know about it. William Ury from Harvard started this organization, and it goes through Turkey and other Middle Eastern countries. The idea is that if the 3 major religions walk together, maybe they'll share things and have more in common. So I had found out that there was a branch of it going from Nablus to Taipei, which is not on there. I spent several nights with Palestinian families, and the guide I had, Nidal Salome, who's a Muslim who is from Al-Farah refugee camp near Nablus, became my very good friend. And this was quite advantageous to me later with the West Bank because I don't speak Hebrew or Arabic. So I hired him with some of the Fulbright professional development money to take me to various places. And you see where Jenin's on the top. That was the first weekend when I was on my own. I am going to show you a little bit about the Freedom Theater later if you're not familiar with it. I was also in Tukarm, you see it up there, and Kalkilia, which is right on the border. It's a completely walled city. Alfei Menash, a settlement, is on the other side, and I actually stayed there for Passover. The woman who she came over to the United States on the Fulbright. She was from a settlement, and they invited me to have Passover with them. So I spent quite a bit of time, really, on either side of the separation wall in those 2 cities. And when I was with her on the side, in the settlement part, she said, she looked over at the city and she said, "It's fascinating to me that you were there when I'm not allowed to go there because it's Zone A, it's Palestinian Authority, and here you've been there this number of times." So I crossed back and forth quite a few times, and that was hard. I mean, it was emotionally hard, I'd say. Of course, I was in Ramallah, and then went to Jericho too. You see Mount Scopus. If you don't know, that's where Hebrew University is in East Jerusalem. And I was in Bethlehem. One of my very close friends taking this course at Hebrew University were mostly, it's Rothberg College, so it's in English. But the kids taking the classes with me were mostly American Jewish kids who were over there for a year on exchange programs, and fairly conservative Jews, I'd say. And the one other person besides these kids was a Palestinian woman. I became very good friends with her, Alessandra Abusada, who was originally from Beit Jala in Bethlehem, and her parents moved to Peru in the diaspora, and she had come back to live in Bethlehem. She's still there to find her roots. So we ended up becoming very close friends and traveling a lot together. And I did do a lot of work in Israel, and when I show you bits from my website, I'm going to alternate the Israel and the Palestinian parts for interest's sake. But my pictures that I submitted to this exhibition were all from the occupied territories. So I was in Bethlehem, and I went to Hebron as well. And Hebron is the experience I'll share with you about going to Hebron. I went with a Palestinian group, and when on the bus, as we were going in, the organizer of the trip said, is anyone here not Christian or Muslim? And I said, well, I identify, but I actually am an atheist, but I was born Jewish. But I didn't want to put him in any difficult position, so I told him that. So he said, well, you're a Christian for a day, because we're going in on the Muslim side, and I said, fine. So, and then Hebron, as some of you probably know, really is kind of hell on earth, mixed and very confusing. So, I wanted to make sure that you knew on the map where I had been in the occupied territories. I wanted you to know what my program was. I was there from the end of February to the end of June. I have applied for professional development to this Fulbright program. And if you have students or know anybody who wants to know about that program, please email me. This next year, I think they're going to Morocco. That's the only Middle Eastern country. I've applied again to get more professional development to go back this summer because a lot of interest has been shown in this website I created. There's a professor from the University of Colorado at Boulder who wants to work on it with me. And so I'd like to go back and deepen it and also contextualize what I did. It's kind of superficial, I think. I think it could be improved. So what I thought I would do next before going to the website is just refer to the pictures that, in case you weren't sure which my pictures were that I put in this, there was a request to make sure that I talked about the pictures. So I put them on a little PowerPoint slideshow. Okay. This Artas is a small village outside of Bethlehem, and it was a lettuce festival. And as it says, romaine lettuce symbolizes both the special fertility of the Artas Valley and the resilient nature of the Palestinian people. It also has the ability to withstand the cold and rainy winter, emerging strong and fresh in the spring. So with this festival, Artas residents honor not only the abundance of their farms, but the hope and endurance of their people. And this has been going on for, I don't know, a long time. I don't remember the number of years. But it was a festival, and they have in Artas, which is a beautiful town, they have an arts center there, an arts organization. And I ran into a great deal of arts organizations, both in Israel, but more in the West Bank, that were very community-oriented and that were there for the needs of the children in the community. This is in Nablus. It's actually a recent painting by a French organization. It's in Martyr Square. And Nablus City, occupied territories, to create this mural, which begins with the statement, "By learning we will liberate our land and destroy the wall." French activist and artist Mita teamed up with the Tanweer Cultural Center in Nablus. The local Arabic painting company donated the paints. Volunteers put together their ideas about education, the right of return, the apartheid wall, prisoners, and national liberation, translating them into images for the mural. The opening was in 2012, so this is a new mural. It's quite extensive. I took this in East Jerusalem. If you've been in East Jerusalem, unless you're in the Arab quarter, you don't see a lot of these houses, but when people return from the Hajj in East Jerusalem, they put the symbols on their houses, and then they put their name and date. You can't see that part up there. And I thought, this is on my website, but I thought what a great way eventually to create an art lesson and teach students about Islam through these buildings and through the motifs that are in these buildings. This is, again, near Bethlehem. It's not exactly right next to the famous Banksy. You might know the Banksy paintings that are in Bethlehem. This is near the Aida refugee camp. And it was one artist. I don't have this artist's name, and I took a couple of the pictures. The allusion is to an Emily Dickinson poem. You might know that. And it commemorates the oppression caused by the 430-mile-long, 26-foot-high separation barrier near the Aida refugee camp. The separation barrier is a canvas for graffiti communicating messages of hope and despair. This image contains both. And I would love to find out who this artist is. Most of you know who Handala is. Handala, created by Ali, am I saying his name? Naji al-Ali, who was a journalist and a satirist. And he left Palestine when he was 10 years old. So he created this figure, Handala. And Handala is this boy who always has his back to you with his hands crossed. And he's not supposed to be a particularly cute or attractive boy. The hair is supposed to look like porcupine quills. And he said that Handala would stay 10 until he, Naji al-Ali, or the people really got the right of return, or he got to return to Palestine. I don't remember the year. Some of you might know. He was assassinated in London. They still don't know who assassinated him. It's thought it might have been a conservative Palestinian because he irritated everyone because he was a satirist, like Jonathan Swift. I mean, he was there to satirize human nature, not just pick on one side. The reason why I like this picture so much is this is in Tulkarm, and Tulkarm, they spell it in different ways. You'll notice I use different spellings on the map and here, but Tulkarm, we went there to see an arts organization called Dar Kandil, and then when we were walking around, this was just in the back of a building, and I thought it was quite touching. I also liked the way the red flowers were, but here's Handel, and no one could see this painting. And Handel is everywhere in Palestine. And so those were the 5 pictures that I had accepted to this wonderful exhibition. I should have said in the beginning, thank you very much, Lisa, for inviting me to do this and for having the photography exhibit. So when I came back from my Fulbright, I created this website. Now, I am not a videographer, so this is new for me. And what I would like to start with, so it's important to say, there's a disclaimer for Fulbright on the top of it. They wanted that there, although they're very pleased with the work. But about the site. This site is a resource for teachers and students who want to look at Palestinian and Israeli identity through the lenses of art, artists, and art organizations. It's not about coexistence or what the conflict is and how to solve it. It hopes to make Palestinians and Israelis real and immediate for students and teachers, or anyone, who have seen the region through textbooks and the media. I've been using this site since the beginning of the year. I teach grades 9 through 12 in different courses. Currently, I'm teaching a course called Contemporary Voices from the Middle East, and the kids are really responding to it. I mean, it doesn't teach them the facts, but it really gives them the sense that these are, real and varied people. What I wanted to do is start out with a very short anecdote about, let's see, I wanted to use, the first one is about the street. So it's organized according to arts organizations, graphic arts, material arts, performing arts, street arts. And I wanted to show first the short one I had about Palestinian street art. So what I did is sometimes I interviewed people and then I was able to video them. And sometimes I wrote text, and you can see the text. So this is a typical page for what I did. Separation art on the separation barrier. Started with an anecdote. This is a slideshow of the murals in Nablus that are there. So different murals. And then it has a link to that Hajj page. And I just wanted to show you, because this is how I would teach. And this is 5 minutes long. I wanted to show this. And then I'm going to go to different sections of it. Is that too loud? How do I turn it down? Is it here? That? I don't want to turn it off. I want to turn it down. Is that good? This is Reem Kalani, Palestinian singer. We turn it down more? Okay. Again?
Translate what the song is about, because I don't understand Arabic.
I don't know any Arabic either. It's a Palestinian traditional song. I can tell you what the record is and write it down for you. I know the title of it, but. Am I standing in your way? These are by a Danish group who went over to work with people on creating wall art. Mandala. That's Ramallah, actually, not Jericho. Huge variety. See how traditional these are? This is a new mural, too. This one. This is where I stayed with my friend and his wife and 8 children in 3 rooms. 3 rooms. These murals were painted by an international group that came up here to Fara refugee camp. Over. Okay. Now, if I were showing this to the kids, I would definitely show them. I'm not going to do that other one now. Anyway, I have one of an Animoto of Tel Aviv and the street arts that's there. It's very different, and it's got kind of electronic music behind it. So I'm going to move on a little bit because what I'd like to do is go to, because I tried to choose first the lettuce festival, which you saw the picture of that young boy with the romaine lettuce. And is it moving? Yeah. So what I did with the website is I had a quotation on the top, and then I usually created some kind of collage from pictures that I had taken. And then I would put video on. So I described what the lettuce festival was, what it meant to these people. And the text is all here that you can see this. And then I had videos on. And this one thing I was quite touched by, that a woman's choir singing Blowin' in the Wind. So here's some young boys are doing Dabki. But the one I wanted you to see was these ladies, but I do want to find the right, because okay, I'm going to go to 156. It should be good now. And somebody suggested that I send this to Bob Dylan, but I wasn't sure how to do it. So I'm going to go to 1. Hope this is going to work. It's going to probably have to buffer. So this is it's going to turn it down again. Okay. I'll have to turn it down when I turn it off. I can't turn the figured out for this one. I'll have to leave this one. I'll turn it down manually. Do I keep standing in front of you? The audience. Okay, I'll turn it down from the beginning of it. So let's see here. Let me just get my sound down. So the actual day of doing all these things, we started out with this festival, this lettuce festival in an outdoor auditorium. As you see, we saw Dabki, we saw the singing, and then we walked, and on the way we ate shrock bread, and we had various informal dance productions. And the other little video I wanted to show you were the men along the way that were dancing. I hope this isn't quite so loud now. It should work. Oh, wait a minute, I want to check my numbers. I'm going to move it along a little bit. Okay, 3:30. Okay. Okay. Just to get a little sense of it, the variety of things that we were seeing. We walked about 2 miles in the valley from Solomon's Pools. I don't know if anyone knows Solomon's Pools. They're beautiful, big, ancient pools of water. They actually have to be fenced off now. They've had too many drownings at them. but it was an absolutely gorgeous site. And then we walked from here to Artas. I wanted you to see a little bit of that dancing. Okay, so that's Artas. And what I would like to do now is move to do some of the Israel parts that I did. So I showed you that that's a festival or an arts organization. One of the people I was fortunate to meet was Andy Arnovitz. She is originally American. She made Aliyah to Israel and has lived there for a while. And she has a really nice piece on her relationship with the Bedouin artists from the Old City. And so I would like to go to Andy. And you are most welcome anytime to, I can give you the link. Actually, if you just put Arts and Identity and Betsey Coleman, it comes up in Google. So this is what I did from Andy and her work. I was invited to her home, and I wrote a profile of her, so there's a profile. But she there's a video of her. Has anyone ever heard of Artomat? It was a project from across the United States. Well, you know what are those mats that you go when you go to New York? When I was little, what did I go in and get the sandwiches out of? What was that called? An automat? Just my parents used to take me and I loved it. We had such a good time. Well, this is a project where they asked international artists to create pieces of art, and I think they maybe made 30 to 40 of them, and you put in $7 in a machine, and it was somewhere in the United States. And then you picked one of these things. So this was the piece that she created for the Artomat on her relationship with this man she knew in the Old City. So Andy, let's see, I think it's, I hope I get the right one. I think it's the second one. I'm gonna try this one, I think. Yeah, let's see, 342. But this also shows the variety of people that I was meeting. And
anyway, what I did was there's a fantastic project in the United States called Artomat, which is a project started by Clark Whittington, and you can Google it, you can find it on the internet. He takes old vending machines and funks them up, makes them crazy funky, and sends them to museums and cultural centers. There's one in the lobby of the Whitney. And artists from all over the world submit proposals for tiny little pieces of art that come out of the vending machine. And if they accept it, then you have to produce like 50 of them. So what I actually did 100, and I think they're all gone. They're all sold. But this was called
$7 each.
A Story of an Unusual Friendship. And this was basically, you put your little $7 token in the machine, and you get out this box, and so it has like this beautiful Middle Eastern Damascus fabric, and then out comes this book with these little beads that came from Bottom's book. And so it's a whole book that talks about...
That was me gasping.
So it says, Badawi is my friend. He's a Palestinian Muslim. I'm an Israeli Jew. He has a small shop in the Arab Bazaar in the oldest part of Jerusalem. He sells beads from all over the world, and this is China, India, Afghanistan, Egypt, Russia. I make things with his beads, artsy things. I hang them off my little handmade books. He sells Bedouin embroideries, and I like to collect them. We have a dialogue all about color. Colors in Hebrew and in Arabic, so this is, all different colors in Hebrew and Arabic. He tells me stories about how and where he buys these things. And these were some bracelets that I bought that came from a Bedouin woman. I tell him stories about leaving America and coming to the middle of the Middle East. He teaches me Arab proverbs, asala basala, which means like one day honey, one day onions. I teach him Yiddish. A shtickle maza is mirov via ton gold. A little bit of luck is better than a ton of gold. In the summer we drink yogurt drinks or fresh orange juice. And in the winter we drink strong black Arabic coffee or tea with lots and lots of leaves of sage. These are the things we discuss. Our children, cooking, school, making money, war, friendship, politics, textiles, hate, and beads. We are very good friends, and we both agree that you have to start somewhere, me and Badawi. And then I list where his store is, and I list my website.
Isn't that wonderful? Anyway, everything on here is completely different. Some of it's political, some of it is just really different. So what I would like to move to is something completely different. When I went to Qalqilia, which is the walled city that I showed you that was halfway up the country on the left, opposite Alfei Menash, surrounded by the wall. The reason why I went there is I had heard about a movie that was being made by an NYU graduate student named Adam Abel, and the movie's called When Boys Learn to Fly. I don't have the title quite right. I'm going to use the clip to show you. So I went up there to talk to the boys, and Adam actually called me from New York because he heard I was trying to get in touch with them, and he was a little concerned that I was a competing video person. I said, no, I'm just a high school teacher, and I want to put these materials together. Well, we since are on Facebook together and have become quite friendly about what I've done here. But I went to this organization, and he's about 30 now, Sajed. He's a hairdresser in Qalqilya, and he started this skating, parkour, graffiti, beatbox group of kids to give them some outlets because they can't go anywhere. And the idea, and Adam, who's making the film, the idea behind the film is to start the first skate park in Palestine. So I went up to Qalqilya and spent a day with them, and I hope to meet Adam in New York later on in February of this year. And what I would like to do is now go to I want to show you the trailer for the movie so that it's very short and you'll have a sense of it, and then I'll show you one little video that I did. So I'm hoping that this works. Yes. So this is a Kickstarter project for the film, and it's coming out at the end of 2013. And my kids absolutely love this. Is that the big one? Yeah. He's the hairdresser. It's a very run-down zoo. In front of the zoo. Do you hear that? Don't stop the camera. This guy has since gotten a scholarship to the Goethe Institute. I think he's going to university in Germany next year. I met him. You can imagine how much my students like this part of it. Actually, they show a little bit. It's kind of cool. Is that? There's a lot more. They've done more video. There's a girl, actually they have a young girl who does the skating now, and there's a parkour video that's available too. Let's see, I'm going to get out of this and I'm going to go back to my site, and I would like to show you the little film that I took of them. So I need to find this. So once again, you'll see that there is a montage or collage of the photos that I took. I did this for every page. And a quote from Adam Abel, more text about what's going on there, another collage. And I wanted to show the video, let's see my page, video number 3 down, that I took of them. The first 2 were taken in Annapolis Park. The kids can go to other West Bank cities. And then I did this little video of them to show you how generous they were with their time. We were in a schoolyard. We got kicked out of here, too. That's Sajed, the leader. But you can see the age difference. There's a very young boy there, and he's 30 about. And yes, they do get injured and hurt all the time. No protection. Now you might ask what this has to do with arts, but I was doing what I consider to be self-expression too. I spent time with Palestinian Boy Scouts as well. I'll show you one more bit. Okay, that's enough of them. All right. So let's see. I'd like to move to an Israeli group that my students liked. Let's go to stop it. And I spent a lot of time in Haifa. And as some of you probably know, Haifa is half Arab and half Jewish. And Masada Street, which is halfway up the little funicular they have, it's where a lot of artists and professors live. And it's a very mixed neighborhood. And my professor from Hebrew University also taught at Haifa. So I would go up there, and I interviewed a video artist, an incredible video artist, Sharif Waqed. If I have time, I'll show you his satirical piece. But I also saw the street art of Broken Fingers. They are a Jewish group, but there's a stop action video. How many of you are teachers? Maybe teachers? Because this stop action video is the thing that really captured the entire school's interest. So what I'm looking for here, if you see it for me, is Broken Fingers. I think I have it under street arts. Yeah, right here. I did a slideshow of their pictures, which I'm not going to go through. I wrote them up, but I do want to show you this cool. Okay, it's going down. Sometimes I go too fast. Yeah, this is it. So this is on the internet. This I did not do. Well, they did it themselves. This is amazing. But it gives you an idea of the variety. They had a show in London this year, this group. They're very well known in Israel. So this is Haifa. Okay, so that's Broken Fingers, and you can imagine how much they like that. Does anyone know the Freedom Theater? Do you know the stories about it or what goes on in Jenin? The Freedom Theater, I think it's a very admirable institution. It is plagued by both Palestinians and Israelis. It's in Jenin. It's a resistance theater. And I went, because I'd read about it a lot. I mean, it has people like Danny Glover and Vanessa Redgrave on the New York committee that is behind it. The man who ran it for a number of years, who started it, was his mother started it, but Giuliano Mercomis, does that name mean anything to any of you? He was assassinated about a year ago. He was an incredibly handsome Israeli-Palestinian actor. He's in a lot of movies. And he started this, and they haven't solved the murder. It was about a year ago, but everyone knows about it in Israel and Palestine. The thought is that it was a conservative Palestinian, because in setting this theater up, this Freedom Theater, which I'll go to and show you a picture of, in Jenin. Jenin is a very conservative community with a big refugee camp, and he had a lot of girls involved in the activities as well. And so the thought is that he also was, I shouldn't say this, but he had a very large ego, and he wasn't willing to compromise. His mother, who had started it, was a woman, and they had actually respected her. There's a movie called Arna's Children. Has anybody heard of that? That was by his mother. And they respected her a lot. He irritated a lot of people, or angered a lot of people. And let's see. Stop for a minute and find the Freedom Theater, show you my pictures. So the man who currently is the managing director is actually, his mother is an Israeli Jew, but he's Swedish. That's Jonathan Stanzak. There's a picture. This is Jonathan. This is a young actor named Kais, who at 15 was throwing stones and was kind of rescued off the streets and brought into this, and has kind of a mixed, apparently threw a Molotov cocktail at a Palestinian Authority guy a year ago, and he ended up in jail for a while. But here they're acting in here. So this is a collage of what happened there. I went there for the weekend and wrote to Jonathan and said, I've heard about what you do. I would like to do a project with you. I have this project on the Persian miniature, but also they do dance, directing, acting, art, photography. And I thought, this is really for my project. And it's all reflecting identity, Palestinian identity. So I wanted to spend some time. Well, he not only said, come and stay, he let me stay in his apartment up above Jenin. He was very generous with his time, an incredibly busy man. And this young woman that I met, her name is Sarah Tuck. She is an American from Savannah, and she was there, working there for 6 months, working on photography with young girls. And she's right now in Canada at Ryerson doing a conference and showing the work that she did. So I've interviewed a number of them. Jonathan did not want me to put his interview on this page because he said people will misinterpret some of the things that I say, so I respected that. I had Kais, who told me all the rascally things that he had done, so I didn't put him on. Sarah said it was okay. So in this, just a little bit of this video from 3:34. Okay, I want to show a little bit of what Sarah says about the Freedom Theater. We're sitting in the outside of it.
From the Freedom Theater, and I just met Sarah this morning. She's an American who's here teaching photography. So I thought I would ask her a few questions that maybe she can explain the work she does. So
I'm going to go ahead to, this is quite long, so I just want to show you a little bit of Sarah explaining here what happens. 3:34. Okay. This is Sarah telling about the work she does there. And she was there for quite some time.
Not their issues, but a lot of interest in taking up issues of being women, talking about the things they wear, the hijab, the kind of society that they're in. And
You have to put up with this.
a lot of the time they focus on, we did personal projects a month and a half ago. A lot of them focus on fashion and what they would wear and what they can wear in their homes and what they can wear outside and how it's different and how you can make the hijab fashionable and focusing on the issue, just being a girl in general. And like I said, on one hand, they want to be 17-year-old girls, gossip and have fun and be silly with each other. And then on the other hand, there are the occupation surrounds them every single day, and so that usually finds a way to come up in work.
do they think that they want to go into photography or in the arts?
The girls right now are they're undecided. They all are interested in the arts, and they're working
Okay, the point I was trying to make with this too is that when I talk to my students, it's so much better, I think, coming from her to talk about universality of what teenage girls are interested in, but then how the occupation influences them as well. So that was my point in having that. Let's see, and a couple more. Oh, all right, and to go from this to something completely different, some of you probably know about the Israel Museum. It's one of the top 10 museums in the world, they say. And I had a very good friend who was a graphic designer. She was a secular Jew, and she created the catalog for this exhibit they were doing on Hasidim. They had a big Hasidim exhibit. So we were invited to the opening. My husband was sitting right here. He and I were invited to the opening, and we got to see a display of Hasidic dancing on the rooftop, which was unbelievably entertaining. So if anyone sees it, I think it's before, here we are. Once again, there's text about the exhibit on here, a number of pictures, and then I wanted to show you, just to show you the huge variety that I was encountering all the time. I want to make sure I get the right one, though. I think it's the first one. Yes, first movie, 2 minutes, okay. These guys are great. And if I might show the kids this in Dopke dancing, might not, might show them something more contemporary. My great filming. Charles, are you enjoying this? Okay, you get the idea. Anyway, they were great fun. Okay, before I end, I would like to, and if you want to ask some questions, there are two more. I'd like you to draw your attention to Sharif Waked, who is sort of the he's the number one Palestinian video artist, and he's very high up as far as Palestinian artists go, too. He lives in Haifa, and I got to interview him. I did not get to video him, but what I would like to show you is something about his video work. Now, this piece that he has is 7 minutes long. It's in the Israel Museum, which he finds to be very ironic, because he says it's liberal Israeli institutions doing this, because it's a satirical piece about going to checkpoints and how men have to raise their shirts and expose themselves, and Arab men are humiliated at checkpoints because of the intifadas and violence and everything else. So he created fashion for Palestinian. I hope I have the little clip. I think I have 3 minutes of the first part. The first part are gorgeous Arab men walking along a runway, exposing their middles in different ways. They have zippers, they have sort of shutters, and they walk along and they expose themselves, they turn around and they walk away. That's the first maybe 4 minutes. And then at the end, there are pictures from all sorts of places, Hebron, Calkilia, Ramallah, and they're real pictures of real Arab men who are maybe out of shape or may not be out of shape, and there's one really fairly heavy guy who's standing there like this. So I only have a couple of things that are online that you can find for this, and there is a book of it, but I wanted to show you because he is fascinating. And talk about deconstructing images with kids. Oh no, that's Palestinian, sorry. Okay, I'm looking for the Sharif Waked one. Center for Digital Art. Yeah, I hope it goes right to this. This was hard to find. Oh, good, it's there. It doesn't get, oh yeah, does it get bigger? I don't think so, I'm just gonna leave it like that. It's really good, but it is 7 minutes long. This is only, you're only seeing a tiny clip of it. And the guys are all gorgeous, and they're all showing up their bodies, and it's a comment. He's an actor. If anybody's seen Salt of the Sea, I think he's in that Palestinian movie. It's a good one. So anyway, I got to interview this guy because he's a friend of my professor's. All right, now I think I just only have, I'm not sure if I got them, but I just wanted to show you a couple of the pictures. Let's do this. I'm afraid of losing this. I don't know if I have them. If you look up, I think I'm going to let you do this because I'll have to look for too long, but if you look up Sharif Waked, because the black background dissolves and it goes into black and white still photographs of men at checkpoints. And you don't get the effect unless you have the whole thing together. But I can't find, there isn't anywhere online where you can find both things together. And then I'm going to mention System Ali. Right now I'm working on a project with my students. We are going to do a hip hop project. There's a group called System Ali. I heard them again in Haifa, but they are in the Ajami neighborhood south of Tel Aviv. They operate in English, Hebrew, Arabic, and Russian, and they do outreach in Beit Ali, House of Ali, with kids of the neighborhood. This improv. Has anyone seen Ajami, the movie? I highly recommend it. Ajami is a wonderful Palestinian. I'm not sure, maybe it's Palestinian and Israelis worked on it, but it's mostly about Palestinians in that south of Tel Aviv neighborhood. But they work with immigrants from all sorts of backgrounds, Sudanese to Ethiopians. And I met them, and I videoed them, and I interviewed them, and then I said, I'd really like to talk to you. And when I met with one of the heads, he said, how would you like to do a project with your kids? Maybe we can do a hip-hop project. So I said, well, of course. And so we have had a local hip-hop artist, he's from Wyoming. His name is Adrian Molina, and he's been teaching the history of hip-hop in urban America to my students. And they're now writing hip-hop poems about boundaries and borders in their lives. And then he's going to come back, Adrian will work with them, and then we're going to video conference with the Beit Ali kids. So I would like to end, so you have time to ask me questions, with a little video of System Ali and the kids that they work with, and then you'll see the potential for us to work with them. This is not a video I took. There is a video on my site, but this has really got the feel of the group, and it's got the kids in it. So. This one's better louder, actually. No, I'll leave it. But it's. You get the idea for that one anyway, and you might want to ask questions. But so we're going to be working with them, and my students are very excited about that. So, I mean, there's lots more on the site. I could show lots more, but I wanted to leave a little bit of time for questions or whatever.